Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. I'm here today exploring the mystical side of life with Unity Minister Linda Martella Whitsett. Linda is also the co-author of This Life Is Yours. She's written several other books, and she has a long history as a spiritual teacher. Welcome, Linda.
It's such a joy to be with you today, and I'm very excited about this book because I co-authored it with my daughter, Alicia Whitsett. And let me tell you the subtitle. So the title is This Life Is Yours. Discover your power, claim your wholeness, and heal your life.
Well, isn't that exactly what all of us really want?
Well, we're at a time in history where, of course, it's always a time in history, but at this point, it's been a long year for so many people. So this is, we believe, a very important time for a message of healing.
Healing on a personal level, healing on a social level, a global level.
When we write about healing and what we teach about healing is that it's a holistic thing, right? You heal your thoughts, you heal your life. I mean, it's very simple, not always easy, but certainly a simple premise. And it's relatable to any of those aspects of healing, any human conditions.
Puts a smile on my face, Linda, because my business is called Thought Change. And I do a lot more than changing your mind, but that's really when you start looking at your life differently, you interpret it differently, you're perceiving things differently, your whole outlook towards everything changes.
That's certainly my experience and what I witness as I work with so many other people in the world.
Yeah, it's powerful work. And I think quite often we're not really aware of our thoughts and just how limiting they can be.
Yes, well, my daughter and I really have addressed a lot of the challenges with our minds, right? The power is in the minds. That's the good news. It's also the bad news, right? In the sense that we're filled with programming, right? With mental programming. And those thoughts run like an unconscious recording over and over again. And of course, every discipline knows this. The Buddhists call it monkey mind, right? But when we begin to distinguish between that unconsciously running, usually negative self-talk, and also belief systems, right? About what the world is like and what you can and cannot do or have or be. When we begin to distinguish between that default brain activity and conscious, intentional, and realized thought that comes from inspiration, thought that comes from, new information about the truth of you, about what you really are and what you're not. When you can begin to distinguish between those two things, you begin to get a handle on the power that you have to change your entire experience just by shifting that thought. And it's not a simple matter. It is a matter of learning and practice.
It's a lifestyle.
It is.
I think probably a lot of people wait until they have some crisis in their life, whether that is their physical health or their circumstances, before they start to actually discover that they have a part in that creation. How can people start discovering the power of their thought before they've created or attracted something uncomfortable?
You're hitting on some really significant points. We write pretty directly about the law of attraction, and in many ways we kind of think about it very differently from what has been taught. So this is important to know. But the first thought is that, for most of us, it takes a big contrast for us to wake up. So the contrast isn't bad. I mean, if I have something that really it feels like a pressing hardship, an acute situation that arises, hey, look, there's no better time. And in fact, in that time, we feel the contrast so deeply that the longing for a different experience is very sharp and strong and motivating, right? And very often it's not as if we need those, but it is as if those things are okay. When they happen, it's just a message that we're receiving. But we can certainly build a life pattern where we're ahead of those challenges. Absolutely. And that's part of the training that many of us experience in New Thought, in metaphysics, in self-help circles, right? All of that. So, that's the best way I know is to begin to study the nature of mind. Study it. There's so much science out today. There's so much teaching from spirituality as well as science-oriented, the brain science. The brain scientists today are blowing our minds with what we need to know about the automatic of the brain and how it's just designed that way. And instead of seeing that brain as our enemy, we can really learn how it operates, and we can interrupt the aspects of it that have been troubling to us, right?
So, do you think that the soul gives us little nudges before something really uncomfortable manifests in our life?
When we talk about the law of attraction, a lot of people say that the universe gives us these things. I don't believe in a sentient universe that is doing things, that is, causing things to happen in our life. So I really don't subscribe to that idea that it's happening for that reason, but we are the meaning makers. And when something happens in our life, we reflect on it and we integrate it into what we know behind the scenes, perhaps we have been longing for or longing about. And so we connect with that idea. So in my book, we have the law of attraction backwards so often that, things come to us, things are attracted to us. We are the attracting power. We are the magnet. We are the magnet. And so we walk into situations that are familiar to us vibrationally. We do that. It doesn't come to us. Things aren't sent to us. That's a very different sort of take on the law of attraction. And you know what I like about it, though? What's become real about that for me is that it removes the self-punishment, the self-condemnation that so often comes with, well, I caused my own problems. I did this to myself. Nobody willingly does that. Nobody consciously does that. But what does happen is that I'm holding a vibration and I'm living in that vibration so steadily that everything I see connects to that. And so by the pattern of my thinking and what I've created a set of conditions in which, if I'm a pessimist, I'm only going to see reasons to feel more pessimism. But that's not sending to me. I'm doing that, right? And I am finding those matches.
Exactly. And even if you want to be over here, or you're looking to have experiences that are over here, but if you keep your focus on the same old patterns, you won't ever be able to get over here.
Yes, yes. In fact, one of the simple practices that we recommend, and we have a whole chapter with an alphabet of spiritual practices, daily practices. We recommend, and Abraham teaches this too. Abraham Hicks teaches about a small amount of time on a regular basis will bear big fruit, right? So we talk about the 15 minutes a day to do a deliberate practice that interrupts the thought patterns, that interrupts the sort of the default mechanisms. It even interrupts physical pain because we shift our consciousness so much to intentionally be in that moment of practice, whatever we choose as a practice, that it changes our biochemistry and it allows for the relief of that constant pattern of vibration and chemistry in the body that keeps things stirred. It interrupts it. And then when I do it again and again and again every day, I begin to build a facility for being able to interrupt more deliberately. And over time, really change the balance, right? Where more often than not, I might be feeling really centered and collected and, and aware of my greater life and not just this thing that is going on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I'm just curious whether you would consider whatever we wanted to be available to us in our energy field. And it's really our focus that shows us what's in alignment with our conversation, that it's not really an attraction. Everything is already here, the abundance, the health, the love.
Yes, yes, yes. As a matter of fact, we teach about our innate capacities, or we call them spiritual powers in the Unity discipline, right? And in my second book, Divine Audacity, I explain each of those 12 powers and how we can activate them and then utilize them in the things we do every single day. Well, in this book, we have a chapter that really looks at how those relate to our when we're in a state of healing, right? And what you're talking about are these innate, always available capacities, such as love, faith, wisdom, strength, order, even release and life. These are innate. And that's what you're talking about, is they're all there. They're all there. And in fact, we teach you can't get more of them. They're not exhaustible. You don't have to search for them. They're built in. They're part of your divine humanity. They're part of what you are. And one of the keys to healing is becoming aware of that and realizing I'm not helpless at all. Look what I have. Look what I have as my very nature. I can call myself love and therefore be able to harmonize my thoughts, right?
So, Linda, how would you suggest people start this path of discovering the truth of who they are, that they have all of these divine qualities already built in?
Things that you might be working on, though they are very real affirmations, by the way. They're not magical thinking affirmations. What's real and true right here and now? And where is my power? That's what the affirmations are for. And so you can take any one of those affirmations and you can utilize it in a meditation practice, in a journaling practice, in a nature walk, we have a whole alphabet of possibilities for people who maybe are unfamiliar with spiritual practice. And they're all doable within a 15-minute period of time. So it's the simplest thing you can do, because you can find one of those 26 that we identify that really is just an easy inroad for you, a nice starting place to begin.
And how would that change your life, Linda?
What happens is 15 minutes is long enough to interrupt the rolling unconscious thinking and to shift your biochemistry, just like that. You begin to produce the feel-good healing chemicals in your body and your brain that begin to bear fruit immediately. And then, of course, it's the repetition of that, doing it every day for a period of time, at least for 2 weeks at a time. Do it, and you begin to see that you're not so focused upon, not so driven by this unconscious running stream of thoughts that are usually about self-condemnation. They're about the fact that this thing was never going to change, that I'll never be well, that I'm broken, something's missing, wrong, or broken about me. Those patterns that are so destructive and absolutely anti-healing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. In your work, have you noticed the association with some of these very detrimental beliefs to actual physical health?
Absolutely, there's a correlation. And my daughter speaks about this a lot. My daughter is always working with a pattern of physical conditions, right? She's got a lot of autoimmune things and a history of depression. And she's really come to see that you don't have to have everything all together. You don't have to be finished with anything in order to be whole. And I mean, that's a startling thing that is so contrary to what we have been told to believe. And so her practice and study and self-inquiry has led her to this state of awareness that, you know, in any moment I can recognize that I am whole and that my life is greater than this, and I'm not stuck in any way. I mean, this is freedom.
If you have a really serious physical condition, maybe it's chronic, maybe it's life-threatening, how can you consider yourself from a place of wholeness when you don't feel in your perfect expression? Let's say that.
Yeah. I'm so glad you asked. We have a beautiful affirmation for when you're feeling pain, for example, as one thing. And we write in depth about the distinction between feelings and thoughts. So our teaching is that feelings are followers, not leaders, right? So the feelings, even physical feelings such as pain, they're followers, they're not leaders. They're indicators, they're not directors, right? And so we say, you know, without hesitation, feel your feelings because they are there as messengers. Your feelings are there to tell you something's up, something to explore, something to notice, something to give love to, right? To honor. And for many of us, pain that we feel is a sign of needing to nurture ourselves, right? So to pay attention to what's the message of my pain right now? And then to know that I don't act on the basis of those feelings. I take care of those feelings. I allow them. You hear what I'm saying? We honor them. You don't dismiss them. You don't bury them, because that's when you talked about in the body, that's when they get stuck in the body. And my daughter will attest to this, is how the relief of her symptoms just by changing her awareness of herself. And it's not magical thinking, it's mind, body, spirit harmony. It's the unification of that whole of us, right? And so that to me is key. So we feel the feelings, and then we understand what's going on with us around that feeling. What do I need based on that feelings? Let me give it to myself, or let me ask for it. Let me get my needs met. And then what is my action? And to distinguish between those two things is another pathway to freedom, right? Because the feelings are real. You want to bow to those feelings. You want to honor them and love yourself in the midst of them. They're just not the end of the story. That's all.
And it actually reminded me in my own training that our thoughts are what trigger our emotions and our feelings. And then that triggers more thoughts. And next thing you know, we're spiraling down or spiraling up, depending on our choice.
Yes. Boy, you're really right. There's always that question of what comes first, thoughts or feelings. And the great debate is always there. And it's the chicken or the egg theory. They all work together. They're an interactivity.
Now, you mentioned 26 expressions to help people get back on track. Would you be able to share one with us today?
Well, one of my favorite spiritual practices is Om chanting. It's a very simple thing, but for me, it's very grounding to be able to open my mouth, to, sit in a posture for meditation or whatever, open my mouth. And what happens is I stimulate my spiritual power as I vocalize, right? So, and Om, of course, is the sound of unity. And so my intention when I do that is to become very fully present in the moment, unified body, mind, and spirit, and simply chant, through open mouth, Om. And also the deep breathing, opens my heart center. It opens my wisdom center, because wisdom is there just, in the aha center of the body. And when my lungs are inflating, I am literally massaging my lungs as well as my heart. You just think of all that comes together in that one syllable, and then repeat that and sit in a practice of that for 15 minutes. It alters the state of my being. Every time that I do that. It's one of my favorite things because it's so daggone simple, right? It's practical. Anybody could do it. And if you're feeling, especially if you're feeling physical pain and things like that, it's so grounding to do something that simple and that has so many benefits.
That vibration goes through you because your voice, the sound, the tones vibrate through your body, through your cells.
That's right. Om is such a healing sound, and the vibration of it, you're right. And I feel it in different places depending on where on the scale I'm singing it from, right? So the higher tones tend to be more in the upper, the upper zone for healing those aspects, the chakras, you might call them. And even in the 12 powers, there are different physical centers where those powers are. So you're dealing with the more spiritual, the more power centers, the more zeal or enthusiasm centers in the back of the neck. You're dealing with all that. And the lower tones are really healing for the gut and the central kinds of powers, such as wisdom and order and release. So you can really experiment with using different tones to have different physical effects that you notice.
Linda, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would say the biggest message here is that no matter how it might seem to you in any moment, there can be nothing missing, wrong, or broken about you. It can't be, because you're part of the whole. You are wholeness, is what we say. Wholeness is your nature. And that means you're not disconnected. You couldn't be. You can't be the great exception in all of the universe that is disconnected from the source, from the all that is. And that is wholeness itself. And so when you start to really ponder that idea and begin to allow yourself to believe in that possibility, you begin to change that story that the culture has taught us, that there's something noble about being broken or about suffering, right? So to me, that's the biggest part of our message.
You are also the head of Silent Unity Church's prayer service. Would you like to share how people can either contribute to that or ask for help?
There's different ways that you could connect. So Silent Unity is a 24/7 worldwide prayer ministry. And we pray with everyone who requests prayer support. And what that means is you don't have to subscribe to Unity. You don't have to even have a faith tradition. We pray with atheists as well as people with faith traditions, right? So to me, that's really the beauty of it, that, Unity has such a big open heart for all people, and we'll pray with you. So you can call by the telephone any hour of any day, 816-969-2000. You can also find Unity online, unityonline.org. There's places where you can do a text-based prayer request, or you can use our You Pray app. I mean, all that information is on the website. Yeah, we'd love to be able to support you and for you to, share that with somebody else who might really value it.
Perfect. And Linda, how would people learn more about you or connect with you?
Yes, you can connect with me at my website, which is youaredivine.com. That's the letter U, the letter R hyphen divine, DIVINE.com. You can also find me on Facebook. My daughter too, Alicia Whitsett. Both of us have Facebook presences and YouTube pages. You can find us if you Google our names.
Thank you for being my guest this week.
It was just a joy to share with you, and I'm so grateful for the work that you do, because these topics are so important in the world right now. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Two Lindas here. And thank you for listening to this week's episode of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You'll find us on YouTube, on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. Come and visit me at thoughtchange.com to learn more about what energy medicine can do for you. And while you're there, check out my program, Alchemy from the Inside Out. I have an amazing group that does some really beautiful and deep transformational work, and I'd love you to join us. Please share the podcast with anyone who might be interested, and remember to subscribe. Bye for now.